logged into your account. So we decided to transfer ownership of the credit
Okay.
over to us. Then I would just clip that on your shirt, and you can put this on your pants and we get it.
All right.
Good evening, everybody. This is a class software development series. Today we will talk about Microsoft ASP.NET MVC. Okay. And let me talk about a little bit about the class. Class is a hands-on learning center on campus. We are located in Learning Center, the computer center. It's very convenient to everywhere on campus. And we are self-support by doing projects from outside. That means if you work with us, you will gain the real world working experience before you graduate. Right? Think about it. It's very valuable when you're looking for a job. This experience will make you outstanding. Okay, and we are very flexible, so you make your own schedule based on your classes. You can work before class, between classes, or after class. So it's a very flexible and it's very unique learning opportunity on campus. Okay, and if you have any questions about the class, let me know. You can talk to me or you can talk to Nathan. Okay? Nathan is one of our best students, and he's going to
All right. Thank you, Kai. Today's software development series talk is on ASP.NET MVC 2. I'll cover some of the nice features you get when doing web development with ASP.NET. For my example, we'll be creating a custom registration form for superheroes where the user can enter all their information and register within the Hero Association. The main focus of this presentation will be to show the functionality that you get for free by following the MVC.NET conventions. So starting off, this is MVC, model view controller. Start off with the view model. The job of the view model is to only house the information that is going to be displayed on the view. So in here we have, this is the information that's going to be presented to the form to the user. So we're going to have a name, we're going to have a hero name, we're going to have an origin city, psychic name, an email to contact them. We're going to grab their age for them, and then we'll have the region where they are, and we'll give a list of possible regions. So we'll present that in a drop-down list in the form, so as not to give these or too many options. Yeah.
Can you make it a little bigger?
A little bit bigger.
Yeah.
Let me.
Yeah, that's good.
All right.
And if you have any questions, just ask. This is the talk number 2. Number 1, we had some technical issue didn't go through very well. So then this is a little bit of advanced topic. So any questions, just ask.
Yeah, if I'm going too fast or anything, just throw up a hand and I'll answer your questions. So we have our view controller here, and then we have a simple model. The model, here's our HTTP GET. We'll instantiate the model and return the model into the view. And then when the user's entered in all the information, they'll click the submit button, and the data will come back to the post in this data variable, which is just a hero view model. And at the moment, we're just going to return the view. Here's what we've got right now of our index. This is the view right now. I'll fire it up. It has the form over here and a submit button and a view bag title. This is a Razor syntax over here. It's C# within HTML, which is the syntax is a little different. You don't need semicolons some of the time. Sometimes you do. So here's our view. This is all we've got right now, but we want to add an input for the user to enter the information about them so we can fill out the model and register them up. So Razor has this HTML helper class where we can add a label for, and we'll add a label for the model. A benefit of MVC.NET is strong static typing in your views. So over here, if we go at using MVC demo.models, which is the namespace of our model class. Sorry about the spacing on these tools. That's the namespace. So we go over here. We say, okay, using this model. Now here's the model definitions, the hero view model. So now if we try to access the model, it'll give us IntelliSense and it'll give us tooling. So essentially the view now knows what the model looks like. And that's a benefit for us. So we don't have to check back to the view or to the model every time. So here in our label for, this will create a label for the input box. We'll enter in the first property of the model that we want to deal with. So label for m such that m.name, and then right below it we'll add an editor for, which will render a input box in the HTML. And same as above, m such that m.name, and m stands for model here. So when we go over to our view and we refresh, oh, I missed a symbol there. Now we have the name label, which is made up of this label here, and then we have an input box where we can type into, which is generated by the editor for. And we have our submit button, of course. So essentially we want a box like this and a label like this for every property in the model. And we could add, you know, a set of these HTML helpers for every, you know, property in the model. But .NET gives us a fancier tool. We can scrap all that and go editor for model, and it'll know to take in the model that we defined up here, and it will loop through and display for all the properties in there. So when we go refresh our page, we already have a form. It's not set up to look too pretty, but that's a lot of work that we got out of this one line. So if we notice here, age is already inputted to 0. So if we take a look at what's going on in there, we have the input, and then we have a type equals number. So this is the C# side knew that this property age is a number. All the other ones are string, and then HTML5 also gave us this little incrementer, and it won't even let you type in any non-number characters. So you get that validation for free, but you know, email you can already type into because it's just a string in the backend in the view model. So this is nice, but we're gonna the same with how the age already has a bit of validation. We're gonna want some more power, and we can do that in the view model through system.componentModel.data annotations. So for example, if someone's registering, we say, hey, you know, some of these fields, we require that you fill out these fields in order to register. So we can add the data annotation required. And now when we post our form back to the controller, this controller will now know the state based on this required. So let's add required to a couple other fields. So we have one on the email for communication and required for the age. So we don't, we want to check their age, and say we want to make sure the hero is at least 18 years old. We can add a range in here. We'll go 8, and then we don't really care how old they are. And we can also put in an error message right here so that when the user tries to enter their information, but it's not within this range we give them, the .NET will serve up this error message right here, or in the view. Must be at least 18 to register.
18.
Oh, 18, my bad. Thank you. So when we go back and we run the view, it won't look any different right now. But when we go to hit submit, we should get some errors back. So the hero name is required, the email field is required, and here's our error message over here. So we got this all for free just by adding these little data annotations, and of course our HTML didn't have to change at all, which is pretty slick. There's a bunch of other data annotations that you can have on your stuff. You can make custom validation and add them here. I'm going to replace these all with some that I've pre-made. So now we have our view model. Now we have display. So before, if our view is still up, it was displaying hero name, but it was taking that name directly from the name of the property, which there was no space in it. So if we want hero name to display as 2 words, we can use this display annotation and type in whatever we want here, and now it'll show up with 2 names. There's also an email one, which is really nice. So it'll check to see that your email is actually in an email format, has the @ sign and a dot whatever after it. Range, time zone. For the region we're going to call it a time zone here. And for our possible regions, I've added a select list item, an IEnumerable of select list items with just the different time zones of the US. So let's take a look at what that looks like. It should look the same. And now time zone field is also required. So this is nice, but it'd be nice to have a little more control and turn this time zone into a drop-down menu. So we can do that by adding templates. So when we add a template, and we tell the model to use a specific template, it'll go find the template and replace whatever HTML is in here with the template that we defined. So let's go make a template. So by convention, all the templates live in the shared folder. So we're going to add a view, we're going to make it a partial view, and we're going to name this template time zone. Oh, but it needs to be in a folder called editor templates. So we'll move that up in there. And the editor templates are for anytime you in your view and you use a editor for label, it will look into here and see if there are any templates in here and use that template first over whatever else it's got. So we go into our template. The templates also can have static typing, and when you call the templates, the model will essentially only be the specific property and not the whole hero view model. So here is the string, and that's because, well, we do have a list over here. This region is only a string, and it's essentially the field we're trying to update. And it's so just HTML drop down list 4, m such that m, because it's just that property. And we have our casting it from the view bag to the possible regions. So the possible regions don't get inherently grabbed because at this moment the only model passed in is the string for regions. So to pass in the possible regions to the view bag, we need to go back to the view, and we'll pass it in here as an anonymous type. So we have our anonymous type. It's a new type with the property possible regions, and that's where we grab the model dot possible regions, because that's as far as it exists. So we'll pass it in through there. And now the last step for this is we need to go back to the view model, and we need to tell the model to look for this template, because it's not, this template isn't a, the name of this template is not a primitive type. So if I had a template for something else, and it was just a type, I could just name it and it'd be good to go. And I'll show you that in a second. But right now, we're gonna fire up a UI hint, and we're gonna say time zone for the name of the template that we want to use. So when we run our code, well, the dropdown worked. I'm not sure what happened to our submit button. It was probably just a error over here. All right, our button's back. There was some weird spacing. But now we have our drop-down list over here, and when we go into the controller, we can catch the post and take a look at our data. So we're at central time, hero name, give me a hero. Superman, easy to spell. Superman. Email sman@yesmail.com. Age, I don't know how old Superman is. He's an alien, so it's different. And we'll send it back. So now in our data we have age 30, sman@yesmail.com, hero name Superman, and then our region is central time. So our template did work and pick up the field and send it back to the backend. And as I mentioned before, templates can also be used with whatever type we want. For a primitive type, we'll change the way this box looks. So I'll throw a red border around it. So we go back to our editor templates, and we're going to add a view, another partial view. And this time we're going to name it int32, which is the underlying data type in C# for an integer, and then the int is just an interface for this integer typing. But now that we're in here, we can still say our model is a type int. The only condition is that the name of the file needs to be int32. So here's my template for that. So we just have a text box for. We're going to pass it form control as a class, which is just Bootstrap. If any of you know what Bootstrap are, it's just styling. And then we're going to add our own custom style, and we're just going to make the outline red. So now here's our box. The outline's red. The styling is in Bootstrap now. It's different than these, boxy boxes. So we got the validation when we submit, and it says the age is less than 0, must be 18, at least 18 to register. We can also catch this in the controller. So when we go back to the controller has a model state class, and this model state has a isValid property on it. So this isValid property will check the requirements against our view model, and it'll evaluate if we met these requirements or not. So if we do not match the view model, just write line to the console, did not work. And so we'll put a breakpoint here. So now run the code. So when we've run the age as 0, we should hit the breakpoint, at which point in a controller you could handle things however you want. Usually, at this point, you just wouldn't save the data and you return the view, like in here, to the front, and the error messages are there, and then the user would have to re-enter the data. So we still only have this this little chunk of code over here. So now I'll show you what it looked like if we took the statements from earlier and had a bunch of those instead of this nice editor for function. So we have a div for each field, which has the label for, and a text box for, which is almost the same as an editor for. I do have Bootstrap type classes on this one. And then there's also a validation message for. So the validation message for will give us the error messages on our page, like the user must be 18 or the email field is required. And when you're doing it manually with this, that's where this comes from. But the editor for model does it for you, so that's super nice. So we're gonna run them side by side. So this one's the editor for model, and then this one's the, I don't want to say handmade one or anything, but the one that has way more lines. And notice they both grab from the same template. This one is grabbing from, this one gives you a nice red color on your errors. This one doesn't. This is the editor for model is just more of a generic type of thing, which you can always customize as hard as you want to, or you can do it all yourself, whatever floats your boat really. But you could, if you wanted to have more power in the editor for model, you could always just inspect and note that this span already has a class. It has a CSS class field validation error, so you could just go into the CSS for your page and take that class, that field validation error, and just make that text red, because all the errors would have that on it, that class on it already. So once you have your editor all done, you can also add a display for model the same way there was an editor for model. So I made an accept page. Oh, we'll make an accept page. Add new view, full view. So we'll just call it accept, not a partial. And then we'll go over to the hero controller. So if the model state is valid, we'll show them in the accept page. So return view, accept, and we'll pass in our view model with all the user's information in there. And then there's nothing in here right now. I made stuff for that. So the view also has strong static typing, just like the other view. So we can access the model and access components from the model and use the display for model. So we'll run our code. So now age is 18 again, and it should, there we go. It gave us a super basic template for displaying. Name is null, so there's nothing there. We have our superhero name, so Superman right underneath. We have our email, we have our age, and we have our central time zone. And here's the hero name as specified over here by the model. So that's pretty much all I have for the talk. Are there any questions?
Have you ever seen, I feel like many have never seen .cs HTML?
Oh, so CS HTML is just an HTML file that you can use Razor syntax in. And Razor syntax is anything that starts with an @ symbol. It's pretty much just C# code within an HTML file that compiles at runtime. So you can have segments of Razor, and you can just do normal C# stuff in here. Or you can have the single line statements which don't require semicolons. And what the idea for Razor is, it's supposed to be used to take your view model and loop through the contents of your view model for displaying. So the MVC format is kind of designed to section off your design such that there's no business logic in here. It's only displaying in the views. In the controllers, this is where the business logic happens. This is where the populating of the model happens. If the user already exists and you're pulling from the database, you're filling the model with information, and then you pass it off to the view here. And then the view is, the model is just what you want to display, essentially.
Are you using Chrome to like run your code?
Yeah.
So that's not like a website. You're just using it as like as you like display. I don't know. I've never seen that before. That's really cool, man.
Yeah, this is web development. So we got our HTML.
Mm-hmm.
It's only running locally right now, so our local host is 32089. So if you had a laptop up too and the permissions were set right, you could show up to this address if we're on the same network, and then you should be able to also view it. But I am VPN'd in to our work network, which you might not have access to as just a normal Oregon State user.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, fun
Is
stuff.
that why it takes a little bit longer to load?
Yeah, that is. So I'm also like VPNing into a machine over there. So this is my normal computer, and this is the open connection into my work station.
I wouldn't have even guessed.
Yeah.
Have you built anything for I don't know, an outside a company, for example? Like, have you built anything
that's finished using MVC, or is it
Using the
just
MVC?
kind of- yeah.
For my last internship at CEK Global, I built a REST API for a database. So you type in like something in the URL and then slash like ID gets whatever, and then it goes out to the database I built. It collects all the stuff it needs for that particular car model, and then it sends it back to the view, which the developer can take and display however they want. So that was done with .NET. That wasn't quite completely MVC, but that was .NET. Yeah, I've done stuff for CAS with this. This is a lot of what I do at CAS, working with these MVC structures and embedded web.
Seems a lot easier than coding it from scratch with like JavaScript.
Oh, yeah. No JavaScript happened in here. I didn't have to touch a line of JavaScript to do error validations or any of that. You know, this was all it took. Just this little segment of code rendered our whole form for us, and there were, you know, a couple templates in the background, but I mean the templates were still, you know, tiny.
Yeah, that's like what, 25 lines of code or in that file. It's tiny. I expected it to be a lot bigger. To do.
This is what it looks like when it's bigger.
Oh, I see. So
Yeah.
that's
So
okay, that makes sense.
yeah.
Still not huge though.
Still not too huge.
Yeah. And so on the same order that, you know, text box 4 and those kind of that hierarchy, what are some similar functions that you can do besides just, you know, a simple, is it just limited to that kind of realm of just like a user interface? Can you do like graphics?
So it's an HTML helper class. So you get a bunch of functionality in here. It's editor, drop down, display for text. They already have a bunch of stuff in here for you. You can also make your own custom class in the C# side, which builds HTML. So you can essentially make a custom one of these and use it however you want. At that point, if you're really interested in graphic stuff on web, I'd recommend Canvas as a tool to help do that.
You mean HTML Canvas?
HTML Canvas.
Instructor.
Not Instructor Canvas. Please no.
Cool.
All right. Thank you everyone for showing up.